Hello everyone, welcome to tonight's episode. Hopefully my voice is loud and clear. Tonight I had a very unique perspective, and it was inspired from something that I read in this book called Bijak of Kabir. And also this episode is, you can say, a casual commentary on mysticism, a mystical inquiry into the edge of human existence and really what that means. Where's the edge of existence? Here it goes. This is the passage I read. Heaven and hell are for the ignorant, not for those who know Hari. The fearful thing that everyone fears, I don't fear. I'm not confused about sin and purity, heaven and hell. Kabir says, seekers, listen. Wherever you are is the entry point. Kabir says Pandit. You've got Pandit is like a scholar. It's like an Indian term for a scholar. You can take it as that. To continue, Pandit, you've got it wrong. There's no creator or creation there, no grass or vine, no wind or fire, no sun, moon, earth, or water, no radiant form, no time there, no word, no flesh, no faith, no cause and effect, nor any thought of the Veda. No Hari or Brahma, no Shiva or Shakti, no pilgrimage and no rituals, no mother, father, or guru there. Is it two or one? Kabir says, if you understand now, you're guru and I'm disciple. There's a very interesting analogy in actually Kabir's work, not in what I just read, but he says that, or I'll paint the context for it first. So right now, on this planet of ours, we can say that it's a rock in the middle of nowhere. And there's creatures on it, and these creatures have been led by the sophistication of the environment and their own expressions to create a linguistic world, a language overlay. Pretty much civilization is built as a co-creation of an individual organism with its environment and other intelligent factors in its environment. Now, the thing I wanted to point to is right now on the planet, there's billions of religious people and billions of people who their attention, you can say, is not on this world that we're in, it's on the world to come, or on a superior reality or something that is more than this. Now, in Kabir's work, he gives this metaphor of a parrot that he says a parrot preaching or a parrot saying God, you know. says a parrot saying God, but I would kind of modify the metaphor for the listeners, and I would say, think of it this way, that Kabir is saying that on this journey in this life, where first of all we don't know what's going on, and there's human beings that are chanting God's name, and if there is a potential of a superior reality, it's as if, imagine a human being chanting God's name, and now imagine a parrot chanting human being, human being, human being. Now, would the parrot become a human being or experience the human being? You would see, no, the parrot is left as a parrot, you know, and by parrot I mean the bird. So Kabir, of course, is a mystic, and mystics are seen as lovers of the unknown. If you can see, or if you consider that, if you look at the planet, most people are fascinated with knowledge. They want to know more. But those people who want to know the unknown, that is where the mystical inspiration comes. Now, if a parrot says human being, and it can't be a human being, maybe it calls for a human being. A human being understands what the parrot is saying. But the parrot cannot be a human being. And this is a suggestion of human beings constantly saying God's name. Not that it's good or bad. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying that it doesn't, the parrot doesn't become a human being. The person who is chanting, let's say, God's name, or mystical sounds, they in some sense don't become that. Now, at the same time, in the passage that I read for you at the beginning, Kabir is saying that there is a truth here that is nothing. And when he says it's nothing, that means it's not that it's he's saying emptiness is the truth. He may be, but I feel what he's saying is that when you look at this world, you find it that it's divided between objects and subjects, and if we were a lesser species, we would just be limited to objects, you know. But as a human being, where there is subjects involved, and so when a person walks into society, they're not just seeing a physical landscape, they're seeing upon that physical landscape overlaid a subjective landscape, and this is where laws, rules, and, believe it or not, meaning comes from. There was a person by the name of Osho. I saw a quote of his online, and the quote was interesting. He said that life has no purpose. Life is the purpose. And so it's as if we are wondering about, okay, what object, what subject combination do we need to kind of verify a truth for ourselves? It's as if the presence of life surpasses the findings of the personalities that come and go. You know, Carl Jung spoke about the persona as a mask. So guys, it started raining, but hopefully it doesn't get too windy, and I would have to retreat somewhere else. But anyways, I'll continue. Pretty much, dear listeners, I'm a human being. I, when I open my eyes, I wonder about what is the meaning of this. I notice that meaning is kept subjectively, and the subjective meaning arises from experience, and experience happens when the object moves. So it's as if every human being has an objective self and we have a subjective self, but the strange thing is that an object, when we look at objects, they're not alive. Do you know? What I mean by this is that it's like there is movement, but there isn't intelligence that is attributed to it. That means atoms don't have personality, you know. But if the periodic table suddenly animates, or I shouldn't say animate, but if it's composed in a certain way, in a certain condition, then we find there is intelligence there. You know what it is? It's pretty much like the human being is a word, but when you want to see what the word is made of, you see it's made of letters, and letters alone don't have meaning. They're in some sense just that they have a sound representation and a symbolic representation. But when a bunch of letters are joined together, suddenly we have like an object, right? We have the something of meaning. And it's like when you look at the different dimensions of the human being, or what the human being is made of, it doesn't have meaning. But when all the letters are placed, when all the, let's say, dimensions are structured in one position, suddenly there's meaning. Now, if the meaning of life, which is a very big question, and it's not like one person giving a podcast can do anything about it. It's like in this episode at least, like the only thing I think I can do is try to wonder and fathom about angles that our modernity maybe has not dived into deeper, you know. So recently my attention has been going on to this question, where in a world where objects change and subjects change, what is here, first of all? And then what kind of meaning can you find in a changing world? That means it's like the person is, before they look at the picture, it's like the picture is changing. So one notion I am drawn towards is that there is no photograph-like meaning or photograph-like truth. And reality is, first of all, a film, but there's clues given. Like some of these clues are like, first of all, why is the world so big, and why is intelligence just receiving a small part of it? As if, like, whether you believe in a concept of God or not, it's like there's something here. Imagine like you go to a restaurant, all you can eat buffet, and you can't eat all of it. You can only have, or you go to a restaurant and you can only order one meal. Do you know, where there's so many different kinds of meals, so many different kinds of experiences the human being can have, but due to the limits of our body, we have a certain area, a certain range of exploration possible. So it's as if, like, who was this infinite world made for, or what was it made for? That's the question. Now, if we look at the who was it made for, we see that we are in the room. We are like the most advanced species on this planet, the most intelligent thing that's going on, observably. And it's as if a changing subject or some sort of attention that accepts a story of itself subjectively mobilizes an objective body, and as this objective body moves, the subjects or the presumptions or the development of how we have memory, it's like those memories change. Not the memories change, we become a different self where our access to our own memories change. Another clue we find in the mystery of what is here experiencing changing objects and subjects is that the nature of objects and the nature of subjects are different. We feel that, or how would I say it? Right now my eyes are open. I'm seeing like the railing of my balcony. See, that's an object granted by light, perceivable through light. Now, when I close my eyes and visualize this same railing of my balcony, it's as if I have the sensation that my eyes are closed, but I'm still seeing an image. So there is, within every living human being, a component or something of their intelligence that is able to, without light, see. Now, there's this saying that they say if you observe something, you're not it. So let me tell you what I mean by that. If you were inside a car, or let's say somebody was born inside a room, if they never step outside of the room, they can't see that it's in some sense really a room. Or if you're inside the car, you have a certain view that you're in somewhere, but you cannot observe where you're in unless you step out of the car and see the car. So similarly, it's like we are observing objects, and like right now I am not my balcony railing. So I am observing it from a space, or the observer is not the observed. Now, when I close my eyes and I observe an image, whether a memory or a visualization, the observer is not that. So this renders, if all of meaning in life is just preserved, is kept through combinations of subjects and objects, something that is watching the object and subject cannot be an object or subject. So the mystical inquiry to the edge of human existence is in some sense either we're in the edge of existence, it's like the end of the sky is endlessly objective and we can endlessly subjectify it. That means wonder about like the philosophical inquiry of an immortal being. So the edge of the outer realms, or what is in front of our eyes, the world we find in front of our eyes, is infinity. Now, behind our eyes, if we're not an object or subject, it seems to be nothing, or I would say an attributeless seer, or how the Vedas would say the seer of the seen is unseen, okay? Now, if you think about a relationship, a sort of spectrum, where infinity is one side of the spectrum. So imagine a line, we draw a horizontal line with 4 points. I want you to imagine that the point on the right is infinity. Then we come to the left point from the end of the right point of the horizontal line. We come to the left point, we have duality. And then we go to the left point from duality and we find unity, singularity. And then we come again left and we find zero. So it's as if reality is divided. I mean, see, this is the challenge when it comes to speech. I cannot ignore framework, even if truth is beyond the framework. Or then the podcast would just be me sitting silently. So it's like a zero viewer through a singular lens is it's like zero through one is witnessing two, and two has nowhere else to go other than infinity. It's as if reality is in 4 dimensions, and one of the dimensions, infinite existence. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. Another component is the duality, the life and death part, where we are like, okay, we're here for a little while and then we leave. There's a beginning and there's an end. A lot of human psychology is based on beginning and endings. It's just remarkable when you suddenly notice it. You know, people not only wonder about where they are going, but how they are going there. You know, that is pretty much, you can say, all of psychology knows that the body knows that it's going to enter the void at some point, like our body, we're going to grow old and pass away. So the mind is left to do something before it passes away. So there is a sort of beginning, and this beginning is in some sense inevitably going to end. And it's as if just because of the temporary access to physical livelihood, it's like the ending is suggesting how we interpret what we do with the beginning, pretty much. Now, if we, let's say, the 2 points of the horizontal line, the singularity, the number 1 and 2, if we ignore those, let's say you are a mystical human being and you're like, okay, I see life as in duality, been there, done that, I've noticed chaos and order. Then you go to singularity, where you are like, okay, chaos and order are being watched simultaneously from a presence. So the personality is in the, let's say, 2 realm. In duality, the presence of the being is singular. The world is a singular concept, but then what's in the world is being divided into 2. So I'm saying it's like, how would I say it? It's like 0 has a relationship with everything at once. 0 has a relationship with everything being divided into chaos and order into 2, and then 0 has a relationship with, and 0 is witnessing infinity. So it's like we are this attention, attributeless attention, and we are watching how things could be singular, dualistic, and infinite. Now, if we give a meaning to the object, if we're like, what is the meaning of an object? It is infinite change. We are stardust, we're like the periodic table is reincarnating as civilizations and planets and galaxies and whatnot. It's changing. When we wonder about subjects, if there is no object, we're like, where's the subject going to be? So subjects also fall into the category of changing, infinitely changing. Now, if we identify inside the change, life will have a story. If we realize we are watching change, we are watching change. And keep in mind what I said earlier, that the observer is not the observed. For example, when you see a tree, you're not inside the tree. you are observing it from outside of it. So it's as if there's the attributeless is observing infinite attributes. Now, what does this imply to human psychology? It means human psychology has a ceiling. Imagine you're in a room and you start levitating and you're like, oh my God, I can fly. And then your head hits the ceiling and you're like, oh man, you know. So in the mystical search of the edge of human existence, or into the edge of the human existence, we reach the ceiling of changing objects and subjects. And when it comes to objects and subjects, what are the ways we can see it? We can see objects that are conditional and objects that are unconditional. And we see subjects that are conditional and subjects that are unconditional. And what I mean by this, the object, or maybe I should use a different terminology rather than conditional or unconditional. Pretty much, it's like if we are a materialist, there's objects that have shapes, and if we're considering we're inside a universe, inside a world, inside a physical world, then it has a shape, but the shape is unconditional because it's like endlessly stretching. So an unconditional, if I stick to the conditional, unconditional, an unconditional object would be like an infinitely expanding physical universe. An unconditional subject would actually not be recognizable. So think of as if just like objects are infinitely expanding, if there was a sense of self that was infinitely expanding, it's like, who would you be? But then there's a sense of self that is conditional to the location you're in and how the environment has a sort of setting, and that setting, our reaction to it becomes our personality. You know, the Japanese say the man is the room he's in. So there's multiple rooms, and that's where we find the conditional subject and object. If you, for example, walk into a museum, you become a conditional subject. And how do you become a conditional subject? Don't touch the stuff in the museum, for example. You know, that conditions you, that sets how you can have a sort of subjective freedom. Now, if we say that first of all, we're saying there's an intelligence here. All of this is beginning from this, that there's something happening, and when we open our eyes, there's an event. Now it's like wondering about the relationship of consciousness with the event of existence. And if it is not an object or subject, that means we are the observer of unconditional objects and subjects. That means, which in some sense could make it conditional to the void. So that means we can only understand infinity if there's zero. We can only understand duality if there's zero. If we can only understand singularity if there's zero. You know, this whole notion of Purusha and Prakriti. But in the first thing I read for you from Kabir, this sage, this Indian sage, Kabir was saying you are not Prakriti. You know, I don't know if he said that Shiva Shakti. He said, but pretty much you're neither space and you're neither what's in the space. So this leaves the human search for truth at a point where no verbs and nouns can be given. Do you know how bizarre this is, what I'm saying? That this whole time we're here being like, what is the meaning of all this? But the meaning surpasses any sort of meaning, any sort of conditional framework of what truth can be or has to be. In the theological framework, we are introduced to the concept of God, where most people know this, but something that is noteworthy is that it's like we're saying there was a creator in the universe, but then when we ask what created the creator, and the answer is that the creator was not created. The creator of the world, let's say God was not created. So right off the bat of theology, we realize that the source of creation is from something that is not created. So how can the created understand? How can anything that has a beginning and an ending understand something that has no beginning or ending? And it's very strange because we have the notion of cause and effect, but it's as if there was like a first cause. You know, sometimes I think about the parallels between the concept of God and the Big Bang. The theory, the Big Bang theory, and the concept of God, let's say God theory. It's as if it all began from a beginning that had no beginning. So it could be that this whole cause and effect framework we have is not the whole picture. And as long as in all ideological systems, this was something that just fascinated me, not about philosophy, but about the nature of language. That because we consider ourselves a subjective character in an objective story, everything is seen through beginning endings, cause and effect. And if truth surpasses cause and effect, that means this whole time there was another way that what we call intelligence is being. That means we may think that, like human beings cage animals, but we are caged by cause and effect. And so beyond this cage is not perceivable. It's like we can't do anything with it. Even if, let's say, a mystic gets to the point where they're like, okay, I looked at knowledge, the beginning and endings, now I'm going to just sit still and silent in this cave for a long time and wonder what's going on. And then the mystic, as it sits, it realizes we are watching the observable universe from the unobservable. You know, this whole time we have been fascinated by dark energy, dark matter, what we can't see, influences to the system that we can't see. Yet the one seeing, the one in the system is unseen. So this means that the meaning of life is beyond beginning and endings. And what that implies for the human being is really, to some degree, nothing that we can do about it. It's like reality is truly a paradox. We are boxed into a paradox, you know. But still, as an entity, we are entitled to form. And even if we are, let's say, inside a box, the best thing we can do is study the walls of the box and wonder about, okay, if we're inside a box, what is the meaning? What is the meaning of a reality with a beginning and ending? So really, it takes life's meaning in a world where objects and subjects are changing into how we are being an object and subject in every moment. So in some sense, you know what it is? It's like if you are inside a vehicle and you can't get out of the vehicle, and the vehicle is the world, the best thing you can do in the vehicle is at least drive it. And maybe if we drive our moments into certain states, then there's some sort of ability to recognize that what is in the vehicle has an ability to get out of the vehicle. So I would say the primary focus of human civilization should be on, like there should be, if all philosophers in the world somehow were listening to me, it's as if 3 initiatives. One initiative, like there's going to be, let's say we divide okay, let's say we divide civilization into 4 categories, but 3 major categories, okay? And so a percentage of the human population is wondering about the relationship of beginning and endings, like duality. 1% of it is wondering about how it's all being one moment, and a percentage of the population wondering about the edge of duality, which becomes infinity. So this means understanding technologies that render human life singular, understanding technologies that render human life dualistic, and understanding technologies that render life infinite. So pretty much dividing the world into actually 4 rooms or 3 rooms, and then these 3 rooms are in a bigger room. It's like I'm saying, all existence is a vehicle, and to understand how it's being driven, we explore the 3 different gears of it. And at the same time, we need a new word. Like we have existence, we have non-existence. We need a 3rd term. What would we call it? Absent existence. So we have existence, we have non-existence, existence, and then we have absent existence. Or maybe we combine it into one word, like we letter link. Letter linking is something that hopefully I've developed, which I hope in the future, universities and stuff take it seriously, where you take a letter from the end of one word or from the beginning of one word, and you combine them. So absence ends with the E, existence starts with the E, so it becomes one word. And if objects and subjects can do things, like we say, like there's a doer. So right now, as I'm speaking, like there's a speaker, that's the subject. My voice, or let's say my body moving, that's the object. And then that intelligence that feels to me is my whole moment that is observing this. You know, it's like words are creating reality, but what is creating the words is beyond that reality. And I was thinking that the word being can't be known. Can't be known. That means if objects change and subjects change, and that's how we know things in comparison to various moments, the instantaneous cannot be known. So knowledge is not or knowledge of existence cannot exist. Knowledge is a mirror, and what is knowing is not the content. That means a person looking in the mirror is not the mirror. They see a reflection, but that reflection is not them, even though it reflects them, but it's not them. You know, I've had moments where in earlier talks of mine I talked about it, where I think it was in 2015, where one night I was giving these talks and suddenly I was like, this very bizarre and shocking viewpoint came across where I felt like, wait a minute, if in the world we notice the natural shape of phenomena is circular. Could it be that this whole time what we are seeing as human existence is a simulation, and it's as if it's just an empty planet and there's spheres of light that are roaming it, and inside these spheres there's worldhood. That means all of life, imagine, is inside a sphere. We don't know what's outside of it. If we went and saw what was outside of it, it wasn't a world anymore. It wasn't the world we know anymore. And knowledge is limited, right? If the purpose of memory, if the purpose of life was just to, generate memories, just to accumulate, then why would we change? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's as if, like, it's like, what are we looking for in a changing world? So this renders really the meaning of life as unknown, playfulness of expressionism. This whole time we have been in an unknown way, knowing we are known. So the only thing left for a species to surpass or transcend objects and subjects which have a base in knowledge is to realize they are the unknown. It's as if this infinity is waiting for the unknown to remember itself beyond infinite knowledge. So this is the edge, I would say, of not just human existence, but the edge of all human knowledge. The unknown is unknown, and all stories, due to the changing nature of reality, cannot be truth. So truth, it's not just that truth is unknown, truth is the unknown. Truth is the unknown. I'm gonna open a random page from this Kabir book. Kabir says, "Poor man, what to do? He talks, but the door won't open. Put a dog on the ritual square, he'll just lick up the rice powder there. Poor man, what to do with his empty body? Not even a glimpse of the creature appears. At whom is Kabir shouting? You get a human birth, a chance for ambush, missed. Falling in the existence wheel, you suffer a rain of kicks. Try your best with jewels, decorate the clay. Kabir came and went again, existence is a lie. Human birth is hard to attain, you don't get a second chance. Once a ripe fruit falls, it won't jump back to the branch." The king of couplets crashed, 2 letters, 4 ages, just a noise on the tongue. No one can decode it. A raft of tied together snakes in the world ocean. Let go and you'll drown, grasp and they'll bite your arm. If I say 1, it isn't so. If I say 2, it's slander. Kabir has thought about it. As it is, so it is. Nectar in a packet, folded again and again. If you meet someone like yourself, dissolve it, give him a drink. Nectar in a bundle. I took it down from my head. When I tell them it's 1, they say 2, 4 instead. For whom sages do penance, whose virtues the Vedas sing. Till they're worn out, that one I'm teaching, no one believes me. The Guru's word is one, ideas about it endless. Sages and pundits exhaust themselves, the Vedas can't touch its limit. Seeing a four-footed beast, the hunter bolted. What a marvel, seekers, a corpse ate death. The three worlds were robbed, everyone's everything taken. The thief didn't have a head, so no one recognized him. Seeing the mill turn brings tears to the eyes. No one who falls between the stones comes out unbroken. In another part he says, the mind dwells in front of the eyes and runs with every blink. In the three worlds, mind is king. Everyone worships mind. The mind, greedy for its own greedy for its own juice, splashes in sensual waves. Mind drives, body rides, thus everything runs away. What's the world like? A flock of sheep. One falls in the ditch, the rest jump in. That road is difficult, no one should go there. Once gone, there's no returning, whoever brought back news. The madman without a guru blindly rushes around, douses the fire on the garbage heap, and burns his own house down. Listen to everyone, keep your own counsel. The powder box holds powder and has its own cover. He sings and says, but can't understand the unknown couplet. Without touching the touchstone, he's like iron locked in rock. Kabir, they've spoiled devotion. Bathing stones and pebbles, the poison stored inside, the nectar's poured away. She belonged to one, then to many. A whore has plenty of husbands. Kabir says, who'll she burn with? Everyone's woman. The body's a ship, the mind's a crow that flies a million miles. Sometimes it roams on the boundless sea, sometimes it shoots to the sky. Throw out unworthy thoughts, make the best of your birth, give up the gate, like G-A-I-T, give up the gate of a crow. Come to me like a swan. As he says, so he does, unties attraction and aversion, doesn't shrink or stretch. By a speck inside, can you be like him? Delusion filled three worlds, delusion everywhere, Kabir says, and he's thought about it. You live in delusion village. You shoved a jewel under the sand and nibbled gravel. Kabir shouts, you got a body and there you go. In the forest, how many leaves? In the Ganga, how many grains? The pundits racked their brains. From Kabir's mouth one word came. Thinking you were of the swan's race, I sought your company. If I'd known you were a crazy crane, I wouldn't have let you touch it. A person of quality seizes quality. One of no quality hates quality. Give nutmeg to a bullock, will he understand? Will he eat? Who speaks sweet words from the mouth and keeps something else in the heart? Kabir says Ram is even cleverer than those people. lion alone in the forest, every second running. As his forest is, so are all the others. Entered in the body, sitting there aware, what state do you want? Thus insight is given. On this riverbank, saints or thieves, you'll know as soon as they talk, the character deep within comes out by the road of the mouth. I didn't meet one heart's intimate. All were full of their own needs. Kabir says the sky is ripped. Can a tailor mend it? I've seen them all burning, each in his own fire. I haven't met anyone who I could touch. Makeshift man, witless, weightless, a red flower without fragrance. Straight up trunk, unreachable fruit, a thirsty bird that tried hard. The fruit is sweet, but so far. The sitting one is a shopkeeper, the standing one herds cows. The wakeful one is a watchman. Death grabbed and ate them all. In front blazing fire, in back lush green. Gives fruit when you cut the root, homage to that tree. Birth, death, youth, and the fourth stage. And the fourth stage, old age. The way cat watches mouse, death once waits in ambush. Destroyed by others, why hit what's ruined? Why wound a wound? Everywhere my own breath. They scratched and scratched some more. It just kept disappearing. After all that search, when they couldn't find it, they gave up and said beyond. Brahma asked his mother, head bowed, hands joined, what color is that man? Mother, please explain. He has no shape or line, no flesh, no base. In the middle of the sky temple, see the bodiless man. Meditated in the sky. Opened the thunderbolt door. Saw his own reflection, the three filled with joy. The Saki is wisdom's eyes, is wisdom's eye. Look in your heart, understand. Without the, I think Saki is Shakti, without the Shakti, or I don't know, Saki, the struggles of the world will never end. So, these passages, in my opinion, are pointing to something the human being cannot do. So it's like such a pure being that the only thing you can do is just instantaneously await. There's a poem that honestly inspired me to again attempt to take a break from these talks that I'm giving. I'll read it for you. You know, I have this habit where I open books and I like poem books, and I read like what the poem is, you know, with this intent that, alright, I'm going to trust what my eyes find in that moment. The poem is by Rumi, this other Persian Sufi mystic. The title of the poem is Wealth is Seed. Rumi says, he wrote this 700 years ago, he says, "Give bread and throw away greed. If you are of my community," said the Caliph Omar. The people answered, "We've opened our doors. We've abundantly devoted to giving." He said, "You've only given bread out of obligation and habit. You haven't extended your hands for God's sake, but just for the show of it, and your pride and your fame, not out of awe and humility and prayer." Now Rumi says, wealth is seed. Don't plant it in just any salty ground. Don't put a sword in the hand of a thief. Discern the friends of the way from the enemies of truth. Seek the one who sits with God and sit with them. Everyone grants favors for his own folk. A fool grants favors to the foolish and thinks he's really done good work. That line where he says, "Seek the one who sits with God and sit with him." You see, sitting is a suggestion of doing nothing, right? It doesn't mean worship truth. It doesn't mean go find truth. It just means be with. And so it's as if when we can be with the how our moment is being present as this whole world, then our eyes become truth store. That it is suggested it opens from within. So many people are trying to see God, trying to find God. They're trying to find truth. But it's like that which is looking untouched, attributelessly is. And when I say attributelessly, what verb and noun? It's just being. Like, that's the last thing I can say, and then it's like, okay, no more words. So when my eyes found this poem yesterday, dear listeners, I had this feeling that I'll share this story. And I pretty much felt like a character of that story. So it's a Zen story where there was this sage. There was this man who knew a lot, and he would share. And in the Zen story, the people of the village come to him and they're like, "You need to be our guru. You know so much." The sage is like, "Okay, this is like the world talking, this is a sign from the universe. All right, I'll be a guru." And the people make him into a guru, and he's just standing there, and somebody asks him a question that starts with why. And this, let's say, Zen monk suddenly feels a cold sweat at the back of his head. He feels this emotion of not knowing. And in that instant, what does he do? He declares he's not their guru, and he leaves the town. And then years later, he comes back with a different glow in his eyes in the story. So you see, I personally feel, I have wondered about mysticism, and I've reached the edge where it's like from conditional frameworks of meaning to an unconditional witness that has no attributes. It's like, what else can there be? So this is, in some sense, the end of my beginning, or the beginning of my end, I would say, and not the end of a physical object or subject, but just that I feel in this years of life, and all these years of life since 1991 that I've been here, I've been around in this world, I feel it has come a moment where no longer words can satisfy, and it's as if to sit with the host of all being. This is a term probably never used, but we gotta sit out of this world, Anyways, the mystical inquiry of the edge of human existence. As long as you're an object or subject, it's endless, so have fun. Whoever's listening, explore this world as much as you can. And we do have this hunter-gatherer psychology where we settled into tribes, and then we find new things, we bring it back to the tribe, but on a mystical, or let's say transcendentalist perspective. If there was a way out of this simulation, it's actually like not through a way. If experience is the commander, direct experience is the commander of indirect ideology. And if indirect ideology is replacing our truth, then we must listen to the commander of the most direct experience, which I would say it is that space between two memories or two moments. And people may say, is it the here and now? I would say it's here before now, or it's the now before anything is here. It's as if we have opened our eyes in infinity, in some infinite movement. What do? It's like this dragon that's flying in like outer space, and we've held on to some people have held on to the dragon from, let's say, its whiskers or something, or its like limbs or whatever. Some people have held it from where the dragon's stomach is, have held onto the dragon. Some people are on the top, sitting on the dragon. So there's so many different variations or ways that we can say, we can fathom at least intelligence moving, but ultimately it's realizing that the dragon is not here. That means it's like, what is truth riding? I think that's an interesting concept, the riders of truth. When the body gets old, the body retires. But the mind doesn't necessarily retire. But if the mind, like there is this classification where they say your body is like, there's like an individual memory where it's of the body from the moment you were born to the moment you pass away. They say there's a universal memory which has to do with a mind that was never in the body, but the mind is still conditional to something. And then there is a part of the intelligence of the person that is not in time. Because without time and space, objects or subjects are meaningless. But the mystery is that time is a subject. It's as if the body is in time and space. The mind that is instantaneously, through the nature of attention, allowing it to be there. It's like the mind that generates those views is not in time or space. And that would be the sort of universal memory. But now that which is even beyond, or let's say, or I should say it this way, there's the conditional time and space of the body, and then the mind is like the universe being aware of itself. The body is like a planetary organism being aware of itself, and that which is beyond the universal memory and the individual memory. Perhaps, as the ancient mystics such as Kabir suggest, all we can do is sit. We can, in some sense, just be. And then, it's not that truth appears, but it's being. The truth of the doers is being. The truth of doership is being. So the meaning of the life of an object or subject, you can again, give attributes to it. And I feel that because we consider we are creatures that know, we're fascinated by the unknown, but when we realize we are the unknown, it's like the unknown is looking in the mirror and we are thinking we're the mirror again. And again, and again, and again. But who is looking in the mirror? The unknown is unknown. Anyways, guys, thank you for listening. And even though my desire is to keep giving these talks, but I feel perhaps the winds of evolution that surpass my universal memory are requiring me to sit in a way where language doesn't speak. The silence beyond the subject of life. The truth beyond death. Thank you for listening. Much blessings and lights.